The Couture 303 Podcast with DJ Viper.
Back once again like the Renegade Master. Joining me in studio today, all the way from the Navy Bar, one of the most prolific DJs in the LGBT community, and I hope I haven't butchered that, and all around Liverpool and beyond, it's the one and only Mr. Robbie Edwards.
How are you doing, Jay? How are you,
I'm
mate?
absolutely fantastic, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, very well.
Good. So first of all, I want to say a big thanks to Les Calver for hooking me up with this interview. I'd never spoke to Robbie beforehand, so thanks to Les for that. So as I always do, try and go back to basics and start at the very beginning. The first question they always ask is, where and when were you born?
Oh, God. Way back in the dinosaur.
In the black and white days?
Back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Just
going to leave it at that?
Yeah. It's a 7 and a 0.
Well, I was 75 myself, so yeah. So you got a big family, brothers and sisters? What was going on there, mum and dad?
So my mum and dad were very late. They always told me I wasn't planned.
Either was I.
My dad was 48 and my mum was 44,
okay.
So I was the baby of four siblings.
And you weren't planned and they had 3 more?
Yeah, they didn't sleep together after that.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. So, I've got a sister 18 years older than me, another sister 14 years older than me, and I had a brother who was 8 years older than me, and then there was me. So most of my siblings had grown up. My 2 sisters weren't living in the house, and unfortunately my brother was murdered when I was 10. So so I was the baby, a little bit spoilt, if I've got to say. Sort of got my own way quite a bit, which didn't help me, I don't think, in my adulthood. But so that's my family system. Yeah. So the baby of the family, the last of four. Last of four. Okay, so we'll touch on your brother a little bit later. Okay. So when you were a kid, what was household like for you, music-wise? Was there a lot of music in the house? So there was really big generation gaps. So my mum was born in 1926, I think, and my dad was born in 1922. So their music was like, there was a lot of 60s and Elvis and that type of stuff getting played in the house growing up. So they weren't my influence of music. It was more my brother that influenced me music-wise. But I do remember I really struggled at school. I was quite dyslexic and couldn't read or write like when I was 6 or 7. And I had a massive interest in music, and I started collecting from about the age of 4. And my mum or dad could say, go and put that track on, and I'd know which one it was, but I couldn't read or write. And it was like I knew what the colours of the centres, the middles. That's how I think I used to know how to do it. So
it's a dodgy one, that, because I mean, obviously I'm only 5 years younger than you. When we were growing up, like, dyslexia wasn't a thing. You were just fucking thick. Do you know what I mean?
You were thick. That's what I was branded.
Exactly. And there was no diagnosis for it.
Attention.
Yeah, exactly. It was your fault, and there was no branding for it. There was no diagnosis. It was just, you were in the fucking dunce corner, weren't you? And there was a lot of kids.
That wasn't good either.
Of course it wasn't. Yeah, there'll be a lot of kids from our generation and beyond who've suffered because of that. Because the education system let them down, but it didn't recognise, an actual diagnosis. You were just fucking stupid and got branded as such, and.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally identify with that. And we'll talk more about that later on. But I developed a lot of negative core beliefs. As a consequence to the bullying, to being put down by adults around me. Like, I absolutely lacked zero confidence. But we might come into
I'm sure we will get to that. So as a rule, then, school probably wasn't a pleasant experience for you.
No, I hated school. Hated it with a passion. I hated it because although I felt like I really tried really hard, I constantly got it wrong. And not only did the teaching back in the 70s and 80s wasn't the greatest, so I got it from the teachers. But then once the kids get onto the fact that you can't learn, like, you just become
A target.
Yeah.
It's a cruel world, isn't it?
Hated school.
Yeah, okay. So your musical influence came from your brother. So you want to tell us a bit more about that? So obviously,
well, it did, and I'll tell you about that. But I've always loved music, so I started collecting, and this might sound bizarre, from the age of 4.
Yeah.
There was a record shop, 2 record shops in Old Swan. One was the Music Box, and one was called Phoenix Records. And I can often remember whinging and crying to get a tune.
A
so there was an
single.
obsession.
Yeah.
My first track that I bought was by George McRae. It was called Rocky Baby.
Very familiar.
Smooth played quite a lot. I was 4 years old, and I remember getting it from the Music Box, and I got to the front garden. It was really made up, and a frisbeed it. It smashed in the garden, and I cried until I got another one.
That was one of my mum's favourite tracks. That my mum loves that track.
Yeah.
So so you started buying records when you were about 4 or 5 years of age.
Yeah, love music, but my main music influence was, unfortunately, on the last day of junior school, my brother was tragically murdered. And my brother was 8 years older than me. He was 18. Now, back in the 80s, there was a real big recession. We're talking about 1981. Thatcherism. There was no money in Liverpool. Like, Liverpool looked like a completely different place.
Shit all, wasn't it?
It was, our fun was robbing Croswell buses from the Edge Lane bus station on a Sunday afternoon. Like, we were kids. But when he passed away, he was one of a fortunate lad. He was at an apprenticeship at Delco, and he earned quite a lot of money. And I inherited his sound system. Now, I think back in the day in 81, it was about 500 quid's worth. So today, you'd be looking at like maybe $3,000 worth of equipment. Yeah. And I inherited his record collection, which was quite vast. Because it went through sort of different periods. It went through like a new romantic, it went through a mod period, and also he worked in bars and clubs, so it also like sort of took a club route as well. And he used to tape shows, and he used to listen to all his shows, which I didn't realise were club style music. So yeah, I inherited all of that, and I think it's safe to say that it became one of my first obsessions and addiction.
Yeah, and how old were you at this point?
Well, after he passed away, after he was murdered, it completely changed our whole family system dynamics. My dad was very depressed and drinking a bit more, and my mum was like emotionally really unavailable, and I found that like my escapism, because I wasn't like in school, I was bullied at school, I was confused, I was frightened, and the thing that relieved me from all of that was music. So like I remember like having a paper round. I think I worked all week for a £5, and if I did the Sunday round, it was a £10.
They were fucking heavy on the Sundays, mate.
So that buy me 3 albums.
Yeah.
But then I probably, if I'm being honest with you, I robbed HMV blind. Because that's how obsessed I was with it. So like I would
put 2 records in one sleeve.
I was just blatantly slicked up my jumper. Like I love music that much. So my collection started way back from probably 4 or 5, and just increased. So yeah. I
think you've explored you've expired the statute of limitations. I don't think HMV can get you for them now. So what kind of music did you? So do you want to touch on your brother's passing? That's what you're comfortable talking about? Yeah,
I mean, I don't mind exploring that with you. Obviously, it was very devastating, and it was a very, very confusing time. Left me feeling really vulnerable, quite frightened in the world. And of course, back in the early 80s, there was no child psychology, there was no therapy. My mum and dad never received anything. And it was the catalyst, like, and the trauma, you know, just got bigger. My mum and dad sort of like locked me up in the house and wouldn't let me do all the things that
wrapping you up in cotton wool, basically.
Yeah, and then a perpetrator, a much older man, took me under his wings, and you know, he nurtured me needs in lots of ways, but then he also groomed me and sexually abused me for a long time. So
was this a family friend or a family member or a neighbour?
Yeah. So that was just more trauma.
And did this come to light at the time, or was this many years after this was exposed?
Forward till I'm 30, and I had a complete mental breakdown. That's sort of like when it came to light. And I sort of like, I'm a qualified therapist now.
Yeah.
So it took me on a very long journey. It's really weird. I can feel that vulnerability just speaking about it. It's like
sometimes it's good to let it go, I suppose.
Well, I help everybody else with their vulnerability, but when you start revisiting yours, if you feel it again, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But so there's a whole like that's leading up to the current day. But I guess the question was, you know, how did me brother, you know, the trauma, how did that impact me? And it was quite bad, but one thing I will say, music's always saved me.
Yeah.
Always. It's been that go-to place where I can go to another dimension. I can get lost in it. It removes me from self. And that's why I said at the time, like, I understand all about addiction and obsession now and what addiction actually is. It's not about cocaine. It's not about alcohol. Addiction's a behaviour. Yeah. So that was an obsession that I had that actually stopped me from feeling really shit.
Yeah. I think some addictions can be good. I mean, obviously, if you're addicted to going to the gym or you're addicted to healthy eating, that's not, there's no negative connotations to that. But if you're addicted to gambling or addicted to drugs or pornography or anything like that, you know, there's negative connotations to that. So I think some addictions can be good. If you're addicted to your profession, you know, all power to you. You know, you're going to progress more. So
I think everything, like what I would say on that is most alcoholic addicts struggle with this. You know, you can't be. There's got to be balance, and with drinks and drugs, that type of stuff. If you've crossed the line with it, you can't get balance. It's got to
tends to take over then. Yeah.
So
you put a post on Instagram the other day, and it was a passage that I've used myself in the past. You put music is the answer. Yeah. And I told you I had a little present for you, didn't I?
Oh,
this is one of my t-shirts, and it's. This wasn't designed especially for you, by the way. You're not that clever. But, there you go.
Oh, I love it. That's beautiful.
I could show a 303 t-shirt with music as the answer on.
Yeah, that's smart, that, mate.
And that's a medium, and if it's a medium, it's too small, you need to lay off the fucking biscuits.
I might even stick that on for Reminisce next week.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Happy days. So, that's how you got into music. You're very welcome. That's how you got into music in general. Yeah. When did it progress into like a dance music thing? When did you start realising that dance music was something that you wanted to do, or did it just kind of happen organically?
I don't know. Just I think I used to like fantasize like growing up, like being 15, 16, and like, you know, like I had it within me, but it was like a fantasy, like, you know, just like I'd pretend I'd put tapes together and pretend to be like, you know, a radio presenter or putting stuff together. And I just knew, like I got to like 1988, and I'd started going out, and I'd gone to like, you know, like the like what we've got in Liverpool today and most cities is a vast array of different nightclubs or, you know, different music genres. And I just started going to poppy places, you know what I mean? Like the Hippodrome and Fallows in 87. I was 17 years old. And like sort of liking the more dance orientated. And then I started work in the Adelphi, and they had a predominantly black club called Saturdays, and it was downstairs.
I remember that because they have Fridays as well, didn't they?
and it was very much like Quinn's. Charlie C used to play there, and I just remember like falling in love with like this, you know, there was like Karen White and Alison Williams and just like real soul stuff. And then sort of like the late of 87, then I noticed this like 4/4 sound coming in, just like, I was like, what is this music? Yeah. This is like unreal. And I remember searching for places that played it, you know what I mean? And really just like loving it. Like my collection really started going like this acid house sound. Yeah. And of course I found it. So yeah, I forgot the question.
It was just, how did you get into dance? Obviously, that's how you got into dance music. So I mean, I think as well, people forget it was bands like Bronski Beat and the Communards who brought that 4/4 beat in.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But it was still pop music. It was electronic and disco. It's all of the same kind of thing, isn't it? So what were you? So were you? When did you first start DJing? Did you were you DJing in New Delphi?
So I started to shop for music in Quiggins. It was on the top floor. There was 3 lads, Dave, John and Phil. They were the original 3-beat. And they just used to sell out of crates. And I just remember going there on a Saturday afternoon. And you'd have like places like the Lejean, I can't say it now. the Lejean. It's a French name. It's the name of the club. It'll come back to me. And I'd like, just like, I can't explain to you. There was a period there where like everything just started to change. And it was exciting times. Like, and it was the birth of like acid house and house music. And it was such an amazing time. I remember going to shopping at 3-beat and just my collection getting so much bigger and better. And I got a break into DJing. I'd been going to the Coconut Grove on a Wednesday night. It was 50 pence night.
Okay, now you won't get that anymore, will you?
It was 50p night. And Friday nights, cause the Coconut Grove used to be like a really top end club back in the 80s, and it was a bit battered and a bit dated, and I think they were still doing really well on the commercial music on a Saturday, and it was like a whammed cheap night, 50p night on a Wednesday. They were really busy, and Friday nights were struggling, and I'd met a guy called Davey T.
I think a few of our listeners may ring the bell.
At the time, I'd sort of like, I was really trying to get breaks, and I'd done a couple of illegal warehouse parties and like drove up to Blackburn, and like he'd put a couple of maybe not legal parties on and played at them, and he contacted me and just said, listen, do you want to DJ? And I didn't have Technics. I'm not going to lie, couldn't mix, but I had the vinyl.
Yeah.
This is before Quadrant Park. This is, you're talking late 89, maybe the beginning of 90. So I was being influenced by obviously the State, the Pen and Wig, the Twilight Zone. They were all like, you know, really big factors. We were going up to the Hacienda sometimes. So we keep losing my train of thought. So Davey T basically asked me to play. And I remember and just getting that buzz. I remember dropping like tracks like Lil Louis, Blackout, or French Kiss. You know, Tent City, That's the Way Love Is, Phase 2, Reaching. Like, and the wave of energy on the floor was just unreal. And It was crazy times as well. I remember working a YTS. I was thinking it was on 29 quid a week. And by 91, I was a resident with another guy called Alan James. So the Cokie never really gets the recollection that it deserved. In my opinion, now I was a clubber at the Quad, but I was also a DJ at the Cokie. It was just as big. It was the poor man's Quad.
Yeah.
The music was absolutely on par. Me and Alan would go to Soho in London once a month. We'd pick up tracks. We were playing stuff that wasn't getting played there. Sort of going all over the place. But I remember having this YTS anyway, and earning like £29 a week, and I was earning 300 quid DJing. and in 1990, that was some dough. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That was massive. And I remember me like being really frightened to tell me mum and dad that, and I was like getting all. And I remember going to Squires in Manchester and buying these Technics SL1200s. And getting them home and unpacking them. And I remember my mum going, what have you been up
Why do you
to?
need two record players?
Where have these come from? Where are you getting them from? And it was just like, it was bizarre. Yeah, I'm smiling here. Just happy times and just like exciting times.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'll tell you more about the Cokie then, but that's definitely a big introduction to me DJing.
Yeah. So it's Technics with your first decks, yeah?
Absolutely.
1200s, the silver ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was listening to the Couture mix that you did with Les, and me and Les grew up in Old Swan, and we sort of like, we weren't real mates when we were kids. Yeah. We didn't go to the same school, but we'd always clock each other buying tunes. And I remember him coming to the Cokie and like always gagging in. Just like
that's Les.
I told him I got me decks, and he said to me, I can mix. And I was like, oh, behave yourself, Les, fuck off. You can't mix like that. And he got to mine and he fucking strung a mix together. And I was like, you bastard. And hence, like, me and Les have been very good friends ever since. Yeah. Like, we did a lot of clubbing, a lot of music buying, a lot of events, a lot of growing up together. Alongside Steve Parry, we were stuck together. Do you know what I mean? Like glue, and we did like late 80s, like to the noughties, really. Yeah. Like getting up to a lot of mischief as well.
Steve Parry's actually on my list. I'm going to release it. Whether this gets released before or after this podcast, I think it's going to be before, so it won't be news now. But yeah, Steve Parry's on my list of guests I'm going to get on. Like
he'll be a great guest. Me and Steve run a night called House Stomping from about maybe 94 to about 97, and it was in the Chelsea Reach over the water. And downstairs, it was Alan Bates, and it was very commercial. Dance, and upstairs we had this little room staying, and it had like 2 lights in it and a strobe, but it was like we were in Cream every week, and like we were playing like Circus Bells and Laurent Garnier, and just like the amount of credible music that we were playing upstairs, and we had it full, and it was just that was special as well.
First time I ever encountered Steve Parry was in the Drome. I was a big Drome head, as a lot of people know, and he played like the warm up set. Excuse me. He played like the warm up set, and I don't think a lot of people get enough credit for that, because when you're playing somewhere like the Drome where it's full on 160 BPM, you've got to get it there. Yeah. You can't start too fast, and the likes of Steve Parry and Nibs did a fantastic job of warming up, and that's the first time I always remember I was only a punter, like, and I went over he used to play this track called No Noise by Master Techno. I fucking loved it.
Oh, I know.
And I went over and I was giving him all that, and he beckoned me over, and I thought, oh, what? He's going to give me a copy. And he went, do us a favour, lad, go to the bar for us, get us a glass of Coke, tell him it's for me.
That was a big Cokey track, that.
Yeah, you can get yourself on as well. So I went over the bar and 2 Cokes for Steve Parry. I was fucking made. I thought I was the fucking bee's knees tonight. So do you remember your first ever actual gig then?
Yeah, well, it was the Cokie.
In the Cokie, yeah?
In a proper club, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And how'd it go?
I was shit myself.
Yeah.
Couldn't really mix.
Yeah.
And I had to learn fast because I knew I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I got those SL1200s, and I was like a hermit.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a lack vinyl because I'd been collecting since I was a kid. I just had to learn how to string it together. Got there in the end. A great guy called Derek Sheridan. He DJ'd in the First Ave in Old Swan, and that was always a pre-bar for like the Cokie or the Quad. Like all the scals would meet up there and become friends with Derek. And before Garland's was Garland's, that used to be called Images. And I remember going to Images very early, like say it opened at 9 o'clock. We'd get there at 7:30. And Derek was a real big influence. He really helped me learn how to DJ.
Yeah.
Derek's no longer DJing now. He's really high up. He's a big policeman.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
Yeah. He does a very good job actually. So,
yeah. The thing is as well, I mean, but you're talking like late 80s, early 90s. The mixing wasn't as big a deal as it is now. I mean, I can remember going to clubs and some DJs couldn't mix a fucking bag of sweets. They were awful. But it was all about tune selection back then because when I think with anything, when you're a bit of a pioneer, you can get away with the bare bones of stuff and, you know, just playing music was what it was all about. And then people realised, well, if I can mix it really nicely, then I'm a better DJ. And then people took it to another level with like the scratching and beat juggling and all that kind of stuff. So I think when you kind of got into it, I don't think mixing was really that important. Obviously, it's essential now. You couldn't get away with it now, but back then it was a bit different.
I think what you've got to remember is if I went into my vinyl collection now and I pulled out stuff from 87, 88, 89, 90, even the Italian house, the production and how it was produced was very different to the format now. So DJs are really spoiled now. You have a good minute mix and intro break. You know, back then, you know,
it was made for radio, wasn't it?
You'd have like 24 beats and then it'd drop in suddenly. And there was a lot of, you know, you could be 1 minute playing a tech track, then you might be playing an acid house track, then you might be playing Italian house. So it was sort of not formatted like it is today. So it was very different back then. Yeah. So if you know, it was more about just like getting the track. Yeah, and a lot of DJs would have their set mixes. You know what I mean? So they knew what they were doing, and they did like. The worst was like buying your new tracks and like, this is absolute fucking belter, and like you hadn't had time to like go home and read, like, and you'd bang it on and be like, oh, that wasn't too good.
Well, I've done a similar thing to that where I've had a set worked out. I was working in a nightclub in Liverpool. The mask it was a night called Cubic, and I was a bit nervous because the first time I was playing on CDJs. And I didn't have actual CDJs myself. I had these fucking Newmark Axis 9 tabletop things, and they were fucking awful. So, of course, I got left behind the decks. Didn't really know it was... And the first track I was going to play, the DJ who was on before me played it as a second to last track. I was like, oh, fucking hell. Talk about nervous, like, fucking hell. So you mentioned before about 3Bs. You actually ended up working at 3Bs, is that right?
I did, yeah.
How did that come about?
So... 3Bs took many directions, many turns, and moved quite a bit. So I joined the team more quietly. I'm trying to think what year now. My eldest son is 21. So I remember him being little and coming in and seeing me on a Saturday. He must have been 2 or 3. So he was born in 2000. Hold on. Yeah. So we're talking about maybe 2004. Yeah. I was working there. I worked there for about 3 years. Yeah. And it was really interesting. So this is before the digital, you know, CDJs were in play, but like everybody was still buying vinyl. And I remember speaking to Pez, and he called me in. He took me up to the office and he said, listen, can I have a conversation with you, Rob? I've obviously known him years. And he said, look, I'm really concerned about the shop. He said, it's got a bit of an attitude problem. He said, there's lots of guys in the shop that are dealing with genres. So you'd have Steve Parry, he would look after the progressive stuff, and he was selling to Sasha and Digweed. He had his customers, but he would look after the progressive section. You'd have Tom Tuft, he'd be looking after the US house, soulful house, that type stuff, and a little, the funky house, but that wasn't particularly his thing. You'd have a youth club, he would look after the Scouts. You'd have Adam, he'd look after breaks. So everything was sort of being looked after, and he said, look, there's a gap. He said, because Les isn't there with us anymore. He said, I know like you're always around Garland Society. I need the funky house section and a bit of the Scouts. He said, you're sort of in the both worlds. He said, but the reason I want you is, he said, because I'm constantly hearing people are scared to come in the shop because of the attitude. He said, I'm just going to be dead straight with you. He said, you've got a big personality and people like you. He said, and I want there to be a friendly face in the shop. He said, because I think it's damaging to the shop. So I was like, yeah, okay. And I swear to God, I still get a lot of gigs off people through the work that I did there, because suddenly, like, I wasn't bothered who came in. It'd be like, how are you? You're okay? If I had the track for you, you would get it. And I still get people saying, you were the only nice guy to me in 3-beat. Probably I'm not sure what the other guys are going to think about this when they hear it, but I don't care.
If I can be brutally honest, and it's funny that you've said that, because as a punter, I always favoured Groover over 3-beat for that reason. I always felt like, and this is nothing against the lads who worked there, I always felt like 3-beat was a little bit up its own arse. And it's mad the fact that you just said there that the manager pretty much nailed it, because I think there was a snobbery in 3-beat, whereas Groover was just a bit more relaxed, and I think it was more my taste in music as well. But it's mad the fact that the manager acknowledged that and tried to fix it.
But I think as well, Jay, that's my general approach to everybody. I treat people like I'd like to be treated, and I think that goes a long way. And look, at the end of the day, we only play records.
Yeah.
Right. Pull your finger out your arse, drop the ego a little bit, you know what I mean?
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
And I think, well, it's definitely gone a long way for me. But, looking at, I absolutely adored working there. Like, it was...
It's like a kid in a sweet shop. If you're the DJ and you work in a record shop, Jesus Christ.
It was hard graft. At the end of the day, filing away, or you'd be on your hands and knees and stuff like that. And, but... this is sort of what was going on at that period. You had Mike DeScala, Camel Fat, probably one of the biggest global DJs going now. Like, he was a doorman.
Yeah.
He was a doorman at 3-beat. He was doing this music, and what a lovely guy as well. He's talk about somebody else that never had an ego, and that's Mike all over. And like Fridays and Saturdays in that shop was second to none. Like, it was full. You'd have every DJ in there. Like, the community spirit would be just buzzing. It was a cracking place. I've got lovely memories from being there. I
think it was Les I was talking to when I said that's what I think's missing now, that community spirit. You go online now, you go on Beatport or Juno or whatever it is, you just download your tracks, and there's not only are you missing that, like the thrillers in the chase and stuff, there was nothing better than going to town on Saturday and rifling through the records. You get 5 or 6 out, you put them on, they're no good, side to the side, no good. Yeah. And then when you found that one, you were fucking made up. Yeah. But also, like you said, you're missing that sense of camaraderie. You meet people in record shops. Yeah. It was like, record shops were like the earliest fucking form of chat rooms. That's how, you met people.
Listen, absolutely, that's where that's where everybody would sort of congregate together and look at, what gigs they were doing, what other people are playing. It was always difficult there as well. If you got 10 TPs in, like, you'd have to look after the main players that were playing the big clubs. So, and then you'd get you get like people that you liked, but you simply just wouldn't have the TP. You just wouldn't have it, and it'd be like, you'd get a little bit of stick around that. I'm just smiling there. I was remembering before I worked there, and as I just said to you, it's a period where me, Les and Steve had been like inseparable. And I don't know, I can't even tell you this is how stupid it was, but me and Les fell out. We really, really fell out, and we didn't speak for about 12 months. I can't even tell you what it was like. And I think it was just stupid stubbornness and pride and ego got in the way. But in this meantime, he set up BCD Records, Butler, Calvert Descala.
Yeah.
And he produced the track, Take Me Back to Love, Bells of Love.
Yeah.
With Thingo. Anyway, I desperately needed this track. And I was not asking him for it. Do you know what I mean? I was snooping and trying to get it. I was thinking, why don't I just
get 2 copies, mate, and give me one.
And just you talking about all that just made me just smiling and laughing, just thinking you divvy.
It's mad in your 4 hours. I mean,
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. That's probably that irrelevant, you know what I mean? But it was about 12 months. We just didn't speak, and I was like, you fucker, why have you produced this track?
Of all the people. So you've DJ'd all around Liverpool, which we know about. Obviously, you're playing at Reminisce next weekend as well. Have you ever DJ'd abroad?
Yep, I've done Plastic Ibiza, the usual Scouse hangout for Ibiza stuff. I was a resident in Jersey. So one of my good friends, Warren, his real name's Warren Cunningham, but he's called Warren LeSueur now. In the 90s, he thought wasn't getting nowhere in Liverpool. He worked in Our Price Records, and he went over to Jersey, and he robbed a couple of my Cokie mixes and took them over to Jersey, and he got a club, and I remember him ringing me going, I'm starting to put nights on, I want you to come over. And he had Cox on, Sasha on, Nipper on, Lauren Garnier on, and he'd constantly but he'd bring the Scouse lads over, he'd bring Kelly over, he'd bring me over, Rob J over, and that became my second home. And Jersey was a great place. I'm playing Jersey. He's doing an event in a castle, and I'm playing there not next week, the weekend after. So I still go back. He does like little reunions and stuff like that. But he's just it's called Jersey Weekend. It used to be Jersey Live. It's the biggest event. People from France and Guernsey go. It was on this weekend, and he's absolutely nailed it. But another amazing top guy. So I've got a big connection to Jersey. I've played gigs abroad and stuff like that. So
okay, so you just dropped a few names there, like Sir Carl Cox. What DJs have you played alongside in the past? Okay,
so let's rewind to the Cokie and why I sometimes feel a little bit frustrated that it doesn't get the recognition. So I can honestly put my hand on my heart, right? And the Cokie brought Carl Cox, Sasha, before anywhere else. John Ross, Fabio and Groove Rider. We also went a little bit tougher. Jump Jack Frost. We had nights that were really, really special. And I've got some cracking photographs where I'm about 19 years of age. I've got a True Love top on. I've got the greasiest ponytail you've ever seen in your life. And
standard.
I'm headlocking Carl Cox. Played alongside a lot of great DJs. Did Jersey in the summer, and Warren put this event on and it has like 3 stages. Drum and bass is big there. It does an old school stage and like a current house stage, and I was with Brandon Block and Shades of Rhythm.
I've seen the photo on Instagram actually, you and Brandon Block,
So, yeah, I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
Very, very blessed. Very grateful as well. You know, I'm always grateful. You know, because you're only as good as your last gig.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And it brings me so much joy, especially being in recovery. Because it was a long time that I'm married, drinking drugs, in with my profession, and it become horrific, to a place of suicide, really, to a place of I had to take myself into a treatment centre, and I had to learn, and all that trauma stuff from my childhood had just caught up.
Yeah.
And instead of drinking or using drugs recreationally like most people, I used like
a coping mechanism
on a very different level. And when I reflect back to when I first started doing it, I used it very differently to everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people would go home at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd end up in some stranger's house 2 days later.
Yeah.
Like, just like bizarre.
And what age was this for you?
When I got recovery.
No, when you started using drinking drugs like a coping mechanism.
So my mum and dad, I told you they wrapped me up in cotton wool. This is how naive and stupid I was. So like they'd be like, they talk about drugs and heroin was big in the 80s. So I knew about heroin, smack, and the name that got for itself. But, you know, when I first started going out and somebody was selling strawberries, I was like... What's one of them?
Yeah.
And I, you know,
that little bit of paper won't do nothing to me.
I put that little piece of paper in my mouth, and it did something for me that I couldn't do for myself. It took me on a trip. It made me laugh. Like I'd never laughed like that. I was a child of trauma. Like it made me feel completely different. Like I escaped reality, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah,
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, for anyone listening who doesn't understand what we're talking about here, this is more so in the 80s and 90s. You used to get big sheets of paper which were doused in LSD, and they were cut up like by a machine into little small squares, only about a centimetre, weren't they?
Yeah.
And they had a little picture on.
Smileys,
strawberries, MBSs, yeah.
Strawberries and microdots as well.
We were, me and a good friend of mine, I won't mention his name because his kids might be listening now. Like, but we used to, on a Saturday night, we'd get a trip. We got I think about £3 each it was, or £3 for the trip. We got like £1.50 or whatever it was. I used to use my mum's toenail scissors to cut it diagonally. Fucking 95% LSD, 2% fucking, you know, whatever. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, and you know, we called the trip because it took it on a trip. You know, we.
I remember going to see Inner City. Probably that must have been like 89, and Adamski in the Royal Court, and dropping. And just going to another dimension. Like Kevin Saunders and the DJ set before, Paris did the vocals on the big tracks. And I was just like, wow, this is unreal. It's insane. And I loved it. The partnership between music and drugs has always been a powerful one. I mean, if you look back at the rave scene would not have been what it was if it wasn't for ecstasy. I think we all know that. We all acknowledge that. Music's good, music's great, music's magical, music can take you on a journey, but add drugs to it as well, and it opens up another dimension completely. But you see, what I think is really important to highlight here is that a lot of our people like me seem to, you know, go on about like, oh, it's not like it used to be, and like all old farty stuff, right? Yeah, of course it's changed, and everything has its day, right? But that's not to say that the kids today aren't enjoying it as much as we did. Yeah. It was just different. Yeah. So 1990, right? We come out a very, very dark period. Nobody had money. Like Liverpool, as you said before, was a complete and utter shithole, and these little white tablets turned up, Doves, Snowballs, Mitsubishis, and you pop off at one of them. Didn't end up at half.
You start with an half.
But let's look at what is ecstasy? Ecstasy increases mass amounts of serotonin in your brain. That's the stuff that makes you naturally happy, right? So the child of trauma who felt unlovable and not enough, who didn't fit in, who was bullied, popped one of them in his mouth and thought everybody loved him.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to be fair, at that moment, everybody probably fucking did.
Well, and the thing is cocaine wasn't about then. So everybody was dropping this stuff. So the euphoria and the love and the energy that was in, the Hacienda, the Quadrant Park, the State, the Cokie was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like you can't measure an atmosphere today like you could then.
Yeah.
Why? It's not because of the music. It's because of what drugs people are taking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I do a lot with clients that I work with about euphoric recall. So if I hear some of those early tracks from that era, hairs stand up on my arms, I'm transported back to, I do a lot of training now, I'm completely abstinent. And I talk about this. If I do a spin class and the music's pumping and so it's good, I get that euphoric feeling.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, this feels like I'm high here, but I'm not.
I mean, I listened to an old, there was it was on an MP3, but it was of a tape, and it was the Dome. What was it, 95 to 96, New Year's Eve, and it was just this one bit, at the midnight bit when Cyanide shouting, he goes, "Welcome to 96, let's go." And you hear the crowd, and it literally brought tears to my eyes because I was there at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, all goosebumps on my arm, and I felt like I welled up and all that. Music will take you places you forgot you'd even been. Music is fantastic.
I wish I had some video footage of the Coconut Grove. I really did.
Oh, I'm glad there's no video footage from back then.
I think everybody will have seen it. There's a clip in the quad, and I took a Saturday off from the Cokie, and Enjoy Anthem was on a 4-track EP. And trust me, I went to London to Soho. I went to Black Market, Fat Cat. I went to every track. I couldn't get it, and the quad had this track. And I took a Saturday off from the Cokie. And I went and if you've seen it on YouTube, Mike, I'm actually in the video. Mike drops Anthem, and you didn't know you have to be in that period. Like if you watch that video, like when he drops that track, it's like Liverpool scoring in the Kop.
The whole place goes fucking bananas, doesn't it?
Like. So you imagine using ecstasy. And that happening, it was just like it was something.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. That's the only way some people relate to it. It's like when your team scores a goal, and that's what a lot of the generation kind of before you and I who don't understand about drugs. Yeah. I used to work with a guy there, and he used to say to me, "Oh, you go to these clubs, you're jumping up and down, you want to fucking grow up." I went, "You watch football, mate." I said, you go there with your little matching scarves and you sing the little songs and you call me fucking stupid. You know what I mean? Because it's the same thing. That's your club. This is mine. Mm-hmm. So you touched on the fact that you were using drugs in a recreational form. When did it take a bit of more of a dark turn? You were using it more for the wrong reasons, and how did that come about?
So as I say, I'll try and explain this a little bit better, but drugs did for me what I couldn't do for myself, right? I always felt unhappy. I always felt less than. So I had this alter ego, Robbie Edwards. Everybody thought, oh my God, dead confident, amazing. Look at him standing up there doing that. But inside, I had this little boy that was terrified.
Yeah.
And, drugs fixed me for quite some years, and I won't sit here on this podcast and say, "Oh, there's big time. I don't regret drinking or drugging. I simply don't regret that. I loved it. Yeah. I had the most amazing times. I went to it got me a lot of friends. I had some amazing nights. Back to basics, Shelley's, Hacienda, Coventry Eclipse. We used to live in there. Morecambe all-nighter. Like, me, Les, stay, like, we battered it, you know what I mean? We had a good, strong posse, and I enjoyed it. But I think it was around, I got to about 28, 29, 30, around that period. And they couldn't come down to lasting a lot longer. We'd laugh. We'd go Suicide Tuesday. And it'd be a way of coping with it, but I'd feel suicidal. Yeah. I'd cry. I'd be completely unhappy, but the obsession to go and do it again by the weekend, it was bizarre. It was like, I've just forgot that I've had 4 or 5 really shit, rough days where it felt horrific. And I'll tell you what, I'll do it again. Let's get it, because you start to get the butterflies and you start to get excited. But it was around the 30th mark. I had a good job. I was DJing. I had a beautiful girlfriend at the time. I had a lovely house. I had a car, and I just never felt none of it. And my partner, Suzanne at the time, she would say to me, "What's wrong? Like, you're moody, or it's like walking around on eggshells. What's up with you?" And I think I just had this one night. I was paralysed with fear. I was having panic attacks, and I just thought one day I just said to her, "What's going on for you?" And I just broke down, and I went, like, she knew about me trauma of my brother being killed, but I just said, I've never told anybody this, but I've been sexually abused for a long time, and I think it's really affecting me. And she was really supportive, and I remember going to the doctors, and I think they put me on what was that really strong antidepressant back in the 90s that like people were on? What were they called? Beginning with a P.
I can't think now.
I don't. It'll come to me. Put me on them.
Prozac.
The problem with Prozac was I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel sad.
Yeah, they make you numb, don't they?
And I couldn't feel happy. I was just numbed out. And then I was still using. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I was under a psychiatrist, and I remember going to a lot of sessions and doing work, and then I told him that I was using, and he just fucked me off. He said, "I can't work with you." He said, like, we're delving into a lot of your trauma there, and you're taking these tablets and you're recreationally using. He said, "I can harm you more." Yeah. And then I just felt stuck then. I felt lost. Yeah. And then I don't know if it was like sort of opening up about that abuse. I remember DJing, and I remember like, I'd be looking at a lad thinking he's got a nice haircut. And then I get this funny feeling, I'd be like, "Oh fuck, you're not looking at his haircut. You're looking at him." Yeah.
So that came about later in life then?
Yeah. I fell in love with Suzanne. I think she rescued me from a lot of those negative core beliefs that I had, that I was not lovable, that I was not enough. And instead of it being a relationship that was 50-50, and like she rescued me a lot, and and she was a really good woman, and she's been a good mother.
Would you say this the lady you've got the two lads to?
Yeah. She's been an amazing mum. And I it was so dark, and I couldn't really talk to anybody about it. And I was never acting out. I wasn't going with men. Yeah. And I remember that relationship just coming to an end. We weren't making each other happy, and Suzanne was brave enough to end it. And I remember I pressed the fuck it button and I self-destructed. I wanted to die. I was using all the time.
What drugs were you using at the time?
Alcohol and cocaine.
Yeah.
I hated myself because I wasn't being the father that I wanted to be. You know, and I'd do everything for the wrong reason. So I'd go on a bender, but I'd still take my kids out the next day because I wanted people to see me as a good dad, not because I wanted to be with them.
Right, okay. It was more about the perception.
Yeah. I wanted people to love me and like me because I didn't know how to do that myself.
Yeah.
So I externally sourced that. So it was a really dark and difficult time. It was bizarre. 2012, it's tattooed on my arm. I ended up in a rehab, and I'd been working with, you might know her actually, somebody that really thinks outside the box. I was working with a woman called Joanne Randalls.
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
So she did a lot of social media for lots of bars and clubs, Garland, Society, Circo. And she was a bit like a celeb. Everyone loved Joanne. But she'll probably laugh when she hears this. She's mad as a box of frogs.
Yeah.
Right? And she said to me one day, this is before I got to rehab, she said to me, "Hey Rob," she went, I was telling her I was having dark thoughts. I was emotionally all over the place. And she said to me, "I'll tell you what." She said, "I've got this spiritualist, John Powell. Why don't you see him?" She didn't say go to a doctor. She didn't say
go to a spiritualist.
Anyway, this is, believe it or not, the beginning of a crazy journey. So I had this house that I was trying to do up while I was drinking and using and stuff like that. But I had a lot of unanswered answers. And he came and I was totally nervous. I had my mum had passed away when Aaron was little. And I had her in my head going, "You shouldn't mess around with that stuff, it's bad." And so I had a lot of anxiety and I was messed up anyway. Anyway, he came to see me and it was a bizarre night. Like, he didn't know anything. I didn't give him anything. And Joanne didn't know about my past. And he said, "I've got a guy here who wants to be David or Dave." That was my brother. He said, he's got puncture wounds to his chest. He said,
"Fucking hell."
He said, "You've been on far too long." He said, "He wants you to know that he loves you, but it's time for you to let go." I was just
I've got goosebumps on my arm now. Fucking hell.
I was on the floor crying. Little things though. I had my jaw brought forward. So during puberty, and probably because of the trauma that I had, my jawline stopped growing. So I had a receding. And I've got a big conch anyway, so it looked terrible. And after my mum died, I had my jaw brought forward. And it was a big operation.
Yeah.
And I got all metal plates in my face. And he said, "Your mum's here, and she wants to know why you've got metal plates in your face." And I was like...
That's not even shit you can guess from looking around the house, do you know what I mean?
Honestly. And then there was just other things in there. And there was just people are skeptic, and, you know, you can believe whatever you want to believe. But for me, something shifted.
Yeah.
Like this message of my brother that he loved me and it was time for me to let go. And within 2 weeks, I was in a treatment centre on Rodney Street, like starting this amazing journey of finding myself really and getting well. But yeah, loads of mad stuff. They've probably gone on a really weird tangent.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So you're completely clean of drugs now, yeah?
Yeah, November, 12th of November 2012, I'll be 10.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've not put one substance in my body since then.
What's your relationship with alcohol now? None at all? Or just...
Absolutely not. So what that treatment centre did for me was phenomenal. I blamed everybody else for my behaviour. So if you weren't abused, you wouldn't behave like this. if your brother was murdered, you wouldn't behave like this. I could not take accountability or take responsibility for any of my behaviours or actions. And all I kept doing was hurting everybody that I loved. Pushing people away, confirming to myself that I'm not lovable. So I had to change, because drinking drugs weren't my problem.
Yeah.
I was my problem.
Yeah.
And I had to do a lot of inward work. And that was the first place that mirrors were held up to my behaviour. It was the first place that boundaries were put in place. It was the first place that I was told no. And I learned a lot. And, you know, I then left treatment and I did what was suggested. I got involved with CA and AA, got myself a sponsor, because my thinking can still really be off. It can still tell me really negative things about myself, that I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm shit. It can still tell me that, and I need people around me that can direct me sometimes. Yeah. So that's how I found that, and that's where I got the inspiration to train to be a therapist.
Yeah.
So I work with guys today, military veterans with PTSD, complex trauma, that use drinking drugs, just like I did. So I get to work with those guys now, and I absolutely adore it.
Do you think, I don't know what the time scale is, you obviously you're no better than me, but coming to terms with your sexuality, do you think that helped you with your road to recovery as well? Because you were probably hanging on to that. That's probably something you suppressed for many years as well.
Absolutely. So I remember I got out of treatment and I'd not even addressed my sexuality in treatment. It was, and I went to an amazing charity called RASA, and it's for rape, sexual abuse, and it did one-to-one counselling. And I remember talking to a therapist, and I was like, look, you know, I'm attracted to men, but I'm scared. And he was like, what are you scared of? And I said, what if this is all because I was abused as a kid, and when I go with a man, it feels like I'm being abused? Yeah,
it's
a real head fuck. A real head fuck. And they were great with me. There's only one way you'll find out. And I was like, you're in control now. You're not that child.
Yeah.
And while I'm plugging other people as well, like there's another great association, a charity in Manchester called Male Survivors, who absolutely did 30 weeks phenomenal work with me that absolutely changed my thinking. You know, and helped me start the process of forgiving my perpetrator, because while I'm still in a place of resentment, he's still got hold of me. He's still my perpetrator, and he's just a sick man.
Was he ever brought to justice?
No, that was my choice. I just didn't feel like I could do that. And I'm okay with that. It was just too much for me.
It's got to be your choice, of course.
What was the question?
So was coming to terms with sexuality part of your healing process of getting over your addiction?
So I'll briefly share this. So I remember like going on a you know, like a gay chat. It was like, and I met this guy, and he lived in Leeds. You couldn't get him any further away from Liverpool if you tried. And I remember chatting to him for ages. Anyway, I won't go into the CD, but I went down to see him, and the rest was history. But I remember getting in the car, coming home, and I sobbed. I had to stop a few times all the way from Leeds back to Liverpool, because I knew who I really was.
The relief. Yeah.
It was a relief, but also a sense of real fear, because now I've got to tell my ex-partner, Suzanne, I absolutely adored my sons. How will that play out in my life? I didn't want to lose them. And I could still feel the emotion in my voice. So it was difficult. It was really difficult. I remember I got out of treatment. I'd picked up exercise, was probably really compulsive. I got myself really trim. Everybody was high-fiving me. You look really well. You look really good. And I remember it was something to do with Les, and I was DJing in Kingdom. And I remember being at this party. A lot of the DJs were there. there's a boss photograph from that night, but my ex-partner, because we'd all done our clubbing and all that, she came and she was like, oh, you look amazing. Who have you met? What's her name? And I was like, oh my God.
Well, I've met someone.
And I remember trying to do a backdoor boogie. Like, I thought, I'll just get off. And she collared me and she went, I'm a bit bevies, will you give us a lift home? And I was like, yeah, all right. And I remember I had hold of the steering wheel, like I was gripping it for firm death. And we were driving out, she was just fucking, she'd had a few bevies and she was just like, I'm sober. She's like, so who is it? What's the name? Blah, blah, blah. And I pulled up outside there and I was sort of just went, it's
a man.
And it was, it's not going to be another woman. And she was like, and you know what? She was amazing. She just went, you know what? I'm made up.
Yeah.
She said, like, I'm made up. It'll all be all right. And she gave me a hug and a kiss. And like, I'm just laughing at it because she's amazing, right? But I said, listen, I really need to come to terms with this, Suzanne. Like, please
don't tell anyone else.
Please don't tell anyone. So let's fast forward 2 weeks.
Yeah. As long as she didn't last that long.
I played the gig. And I remember everybody, you play your gigs. And I went to Garland's. She was in there with a load of girls. And loads of people just started coming to me going, oh, so you're gay, are you? And I was like, it was Carl Ralph, one of the lads. And I was like... And I remember, honestly...
Yeah, nice one, dickhead.
I pinned her up against the wall. I was like, you bastard. But she did me the biggest favour in the world because I had to crack on. I had to get honest with myself and get honest with other people. So yeah, that was me coming out.
Yeah.
The thing is, fucking everybody knew anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's always them, isn't there? There was lads in our school, and like, I mean, obviously, when you're in school, you tease and he's gay, and they're like, I'm not, and like years later, like, we fucking told you. But as I said to you on the phone the other day,
you don't realise though, and I get it, but like today, it's so much more acceptable. But go back to the 80s, like you couldn't be out.
Yeah.
Like it was not acceptable. You got battered.
Yeah.
Like,
as I said to you on the phone, when I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, the worst thing you could get called in school was gay. Mm. It really was. It was like branding someone as being a fucking a murderer. I mean, I can remember. I was one of them kids, mate. I had my ear pierced. Yeah. So by definition, I was gay. And I remember really like being offended. They fucking think I'm gay. And I look back now, if someone thinks I'm gay now, I don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter anymore.
You've got to think about how times changed. You're 75. I'm 70. It was different. And it was the way, like, it wouldn't be just gay. It'd be like, you fucking...
There was a hate involved with it.
There was a real hate behind it. And because... nobody knew about the abuse. Like, it was like, I have to defend this. Like, it's because that's happened to me. Yeah. People can see something in me. Yeah. I was born gay.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I've got a choice.
I believe you're like, you're born gay. Like, I was always gay. Yeah. But those contributing factors,
of course,
didn't help me come to terms. Today, I'm open. I'm gay. I'm in a loving, kind, honest relationship. And love is love. I know that's a cliche word.
No, it is.
But it is. And you know what? I'm proud to be who I am today. Yeah. There was a time that if you'd have, the Matrix, you take the blue pill or right? There was a time that I would have paid a lot of money to take that other pill to be heterosexual, to be normal. Yeah. Because
even you're saying normal.
I hated it. Yeah. I hated it. I didn't want to be gay. Yeah. But today is very different. Yeah. I'm very, very proud. Yeah. But it took me a long time to get there. Yeah.
And the thing as well as which you didn't touch on then, obviously, how old are your kids now?
My eldest son is 21 and my youngest son, Lewis, he's 18. Yeah. So Owen didn't take it very well. I told him when he was about 14. He didn't reject me or anything, but
it's a shock,
struggled because I think he didn't want his friends to give him shit.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But all Lewis is a different kettle of fish. He's just like, not asked.
Yeah.
So what?
But as I was going to allude to then, if you'd have had that conversation with a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old 30 years ago, it would have gone completely fucking different because the world was different then. You know, I've got 3 older kids and 2 little kids as well. When my older kids were in senior school, I remember my middle daughter, and she said, "This is my mate." And he said, "Hiya," and I was like, how fucking good's that he can just be that openly gay in school and know what he's happy, you know, he's got friends. No, fucking hell, but there was a gay kid in our school when we was, he'd have been ostracised. Absolutely. You know, and it's just, I just think it's nice that society's changed that much where you can be who you want to be now, and you'll always get dickheads, you'll always get bigots, you'll always get
I don't think it's as bad. I mean,
it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be.
What a gig that I've been playing lately is in Manchester. And like obviously I'd grown up around G-Bar and Garlands and Society, and they were gay friendly, and I got this gig in the Eagle, and as a gay man I was like, whoa, because it's men only, and anything goes, and but it what an amazing place that you got a place where you can just go and celebrate who you really are, and they love the music. Like I can go from glitterbox, disco, influenced house, vocal, and end at like 5 a.m, you know, playing tech house. It's probably one of my favourite gigs to play at the moment.
First time I ever went to Garland's, I didn't get in. The funny story about that was,
you look like a hetero.
I looked a bit different back then. Like I wasn't as big, and I had longer hair as well. And there was 2 couples, me and my missus at the time, and my mate and his missus. And the ironic thing was, I'd been booked to play in Garland's on the Saturday. This is the previous Saturday. So I'd never been.
John Como for
I'd never been to Garland's. I thought I need to go and get a lay of the land and, you know, see what kind of music, because I was playing downstairs in the Soho. It was like a much harder vibe. So the flyer said football. It must have been the World Cup or something like that. Footballers' wives, shoulder pads and shin pads. So I went out and bought myself an England t-shirt. That might have been what fucking threw them off, to be honest with you. And I had these. I can picture you in that queue,
and I know you're not getting in.
And I had these denim, like 3/4 length jeans, like just past the knee. So we get to the front of the queue, and the doorman kind of looked me up and down. He went, "You've been here before, mate?" And I said, No, first time. And he went, "Nah, not tonight, mate." And I was like, "You bastard." So I thought, there's 2 ways I can go out here. I can like challenge him, or I can just ask him out. So I said, "If you don't mind me asking, mate," I said, "What's the reason you've said no?" And he kind of looked me up and down. He probably didn't want to say, because you look like a fucking typical, you know, gay bashing fucking hetero dude. He went, "Shorts." I said, "So if I came back and I didn't have shorts on, would you let me in?" And he went, "Yeah." So luckily enough, we'd gone to my mate to get changed, and I drove down there in jeans rather than trackies, otherwise we'd be fucked. So me and the lad went back to where threw these jeans on, gets to the front of the queue. It was a different doorman, and he went, "You've been here before, mate?" And I said, "Yeah, about 25 minutes ago." And he went, "What?" I said, "Your mate there wouldn't let me in." I said, "Because I had shorts on." And he went, "Do you knock him back for shorts?" And he went, "Yeah." And he went, "Yeah, I'll go in, lad." He walks in, and there was lads in there with fucking shorts, like fucking knickers shorts, you know what I mean? And I thought, he's just done that as a test to see like how I reacted, I think.
No, I'll tell you what though, and I've got the reason Garland's was such an amazing, successful club was because of their door policy. But let's get it right. It was the most beautiful women, right, and the gay mates.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of straight lads, because I've got a lot of straight friends, you know, like, it'd be a struggle for me to get in there, even though I knew everybody as a DJ. Sometimes I'd have to get Les to come out, or Huey or Dave Booth. Like, God, listen, I'm being arsey again. But let's have it right. Like, unfortunately, if you didn't get in there, tough. Yeah. But it was a phenomenal club. Like, it was, and it was the DJ hangout. So every DJ went to other bars or clubs, you would end up there. It was got fun.
I had some fantastic. Like I said, the first time I went was the week before I was playing, And I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved it, you know. And again, as a straight guy, you'd sometimes turn around and go, oh shit, you know, there's two fellas fucking necking there. It's a bit awkward. I don't know whether it's what we face, you know what I mean? But you get used to it. You just turn a fucking blind.
One of the best things I saw on Garland's store is that I was already in and I'd come out and it was on the step and I think I was talking to Martin Sound. If no one knows him, he used to do all the sound in there. And the doorman were giving it the usual. And two lads there, and he said, we're gay mates. And he said, all right, kiss each other. And he wouldn't.
Yeah, we're not that fucking desperate. Okay, now. Yeah. So where are your residencies now? You know you play the Navy bar quite a bit.
So I'm doing Navy every Friday. So I've got Reminisce coming up next week. I've got a Face event in October. Looking forward to that. That's everybody's on that. I'm also over in Jersey on the 17th. And I'll be back up in Manchester October for the Eagle.
Fantastic.
So yeah, all good.
So we're going to go now to a couple of fan questions.
Oh really? Okay.
Hello. 112. Now is
fan
question
time.
So the first one we've got is from Stephen Hoodmeyer. I'm going to butcher the name here. I do apologize. Stephen Hoodmeyer from Wallasey.
Okay.
He says, loving the podcast so far, mate. Some great guests. Would love to hear Dave Graham's story and Lee Butler's also. So if either of them two are listening, get in touch. My question for Robbie is, where was he at the turn of the millennium and does he think it was a turning point in the club scene in general?
Where was I in the millennium? Okay, so if my memory serves me well, you'll have to forgive me because I was still getting smashed at this time. Cream did a millennium party, and no, I wasn't there because I thought it was extortionate. Where was I? Where did we bring the millennium in? I don't know. It can't be that memorable, can it? Really? Yeah.
I think. I mean, what he said.
I really can't. Wow. Why can't I remember that?
Was it a turning point in the club scene in general? I think it was because
it was.
As you've alluded to there, you had clubs like Cream charging what they wanted because it was. Let's be honest, it's a once in a lifetime thing. Yeah. New century, new millennium, new year, you know, all that kind of stuff. But then you had your local boozer, which was normally free to get in, charging £10 to get in. So I think it was a bit of a turning point because people started to realise, I'm not fucking paying a tenner to get in me fucking boozer. I'll just go to fucking offie, get a load of ale. And after, you know, 1999, 2000, everyone was a fucking DJ, weren't they? Everyone had decks.
I would agree with that. Sorry, I can't remember where it was, but yeah, looking at it from that perspective, yeah, it was a turning point.
People were just. I mean, I was in a house in Hillwood with my ex, and I think I had two kids at the time. And Ian Redmond. How many have you
got, Jay?
I've got 5 altogether.
Should have got a plasma.
Yeah, I should have been fucking gay. I might have been fucking cheaper.
You still might have ended up with 2.
Yeah, so I was in my house. And Ian Redmond was there. Ian Redmond was a kid back then. I think he was about 18, 19. I think he was still called DJ Flip. And then now he is on fucking Top of the Pops and all that. So next question is from
the DJ school up above 3 Beat.
That's right. Yeah, he asked me to work there before he got Rob involved. Yeah. He asked me would a train teach scratching in there, which I was honoured that he asked me.
I love Ian. He's such a scallywag, but just a lovable one. He's a boss lad.
Yeah. The next question is from Anonymous from Liverpool. Ask Robbie what he did with his dad's Brotherhood of Man record.
So my dad, and you're going to get me emotional upset. So my dad drove me insane. He used to sing that song all the time. Save all your kisses for me. Save all your kisses. And I despised it. Right. And I didn't do anything bad to the record. I think it might still be in a collection somewhere. It was 7-inch. I think it was on Pi Records. Right. So I didn't do anything bad to the track. But my dad died in COVID. And it was at the beginning of COVID. I hadn't been able to see him for a few months. And seen him a couple of days before through the window. And then he unfortunately died. And he had vascular dementia. So I already felt like I lost him. And then 10 people could come to the funeral. I'd have to pick coffins on the internet. It was just vile, wasn't it? A real time I don't really want to remember really. But on the morning of his funeral, I thought, I'll really proud of myself of really being supportive to my family. This is the power of recovery and emotionally being available. And I said, Alexa, play Brotherhood of Man, Save All Your Kisses for me. And I hadn't cried at that point. And then I heard the track, and I just completely just filled and broke. I sobbed for about 20 minutes, and I was like, I haven't played that record. But again, music is the answer, because it took me to those memories, and it helped me release some of that grief.
Yeah, I remember when me oldest lad was first born, so we're going like 2002, 2004, and I'd been after the Utah Saints version of Little Bear by Annie Lennox for fucking years, because it was quite a... I remember when it first came out, it was 99 pence in HMV, and then somewhere along the way it became a £25, £30 track that you couldn't get anywhere.
It was one of those tracks you thought, that's shit, I'm not buying that, and then it got massive.
Exactly, yeah. And I loved it, and I remember I'd been in the hospital with my ex, and my son had been born, and I'd come home, and I went in, there was a little thing through the door saying, your parcels are next door type thing, and I knocked next door, and I had some records delivered, and one was Little Bear by Annie Lennox, and I put it on my decks, and I remember as soon as it started, I fucking burst out crying. I'm welling up now thinking about it. The emotion, obviously, I was tired, my son had just been born, we had all that, but just hearing that track, as you say, music it's incredible. It really is. So next question from Steph Armitage. Do you prefer playing in gay clubs or mixed clubs, and what, if anything, is the most significant difference?
Okay. Interesting question. No, I haven't got a preference. No. It's like you're only as good as your crowd. Yeah. Like, that's to be honest. So, like, I've just said that I like playing the Eagle because I've got less boundaries. I can sort of go in lots of directions, where other places I might get booked and it's just predominantly to do an old school set, which I still adore. Yeah.
But it's nice to have that freedom.
Yeah, it's nice to have that freedom. If there's a crowd and they're up for it, I love playing.
Next question from Anonymous Liverpool. Ask him about You Vicious Bird.
I don't know where you're getting all this.
I think you can probably fucking work it out.
Okay, so my youngest sister, Irene, she was 16. She had a son called Colin, and she buggered off to... she was only young. Her marriage didn't work out. I think my mum and dad made her get married. Anyway, she got off to London, and my mum ended up bringing our Col up. So instead of him being my nephew, he was more like my brother. There's only 3 years gap between us. Fucking hell. You've done your own work here. So me and our colleague would have this game where we'd stand on the arm of the settee. We would fold our arms and we'd have to fall back. And as you fall back, he would say, "You vicious bird!" I'm presuming that's come from our Yeah, an absolute stupid game. Yeah. But there's another childhood memory.
Classic, absolute classic. Right, last question from the fans. Hayley Jones from Stockbridge Village wants to know, what's your most embarrassing moment or biggest mistake while DJing?
Oh, God. Oh, God. Embarrassing moment. I think that there's been a few. Like, I think every DJ's nightmare is they're under the influence or they haven't been paying enough attention and they stop the wrong track and the club goes, and you go,
and that's much easier to do now with CDJs, isn't it?
I'm going to divert from me back onto Les. I remember Les playing in the Cokie, and we were all, should we say, worse for wear. There was little birds were floating around inside our body. And I was watching them. And I was watching them, I was like, Les, that record is about to run out. Like, he got there. But yeah, I'd say most embarrassing moment is definitely and it's probably a classic that a lot of DJs have done, is they've took the arm off the track or they've pressed stop on the CDJ on the wrong one. And it's just like, in that second of that moment when you've got all those people dancing and in a rhythm and looking at you and high-fiving you and clapping you or whatever's going on, and then it's just like, it's like that whirlwind, you know, like the tumbleweed that
because
goes
it's
across the floor.
Ultimate silence.
It's like,
you just had 5k of sound bursting out, and then it's silence, and everyone automatically looks at you.
So I'd say that's probably,
Okay.
Me other embarrassing moment would be in a stage production in Grand Central when I was about 14, and I was the back end of a donkey, and I fell off the stage and broke my leg.
Fucking hell.
That was fucking embarrassing.
The back end of a donkey. Fucking hell. Right, so we're going to finish off now with some quick fire questions. DJ Robbie Edwards, I will take your first answer and your first answer only. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Grease or Dirty Dancing?
Grease, without a doubt.
If you could be any superhero, which one would you be?
Superman.
Monopoly or poker?
Monopoly.
Cinema or theatre?
Cinema.
Alive or dead? If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? You know that's a good question.
Alive or dead? Who would I have dinner with? I don't know. I think that things have changed. I would love to have dinner with Russell Brand.
Yeah.
Just in regards to addiction and recovery and spiritual well-being.
Yeah. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
If you won the Euro Millions on Tuesday, what would be your first purchase?
I'm not, you know what? Honest to God, I'm not ego-driven anymore. I'm really happy and content. So there's nothing. I think what I would do is I would want to go on some like mind-changing retreat or something. Yeah. I would like want to go away for a few months and like really work on myself. Yeah. I know that might sound really shit.
No, it's good. You could also sponsor this podcast.
Yeah.
70s or 80s?
80s.
Cola bottles or cola cubes?
Cola bottles, of course.
Well, not of course. Of course. Who would you pick to play you in a movie?
Oh, God. I wouldn't know what poor fella to pick. I haven't got a clue. After this podcast, I don't think anybody would want to be me. I don't know. I'm going to have to pass.
Okay, I'll let you pass. Bullseye or catchphrase? Bullseye or catchphrase?
Catchphrase.
If you could eliminate one thing from the world, what would it be?
Poverty.
And what's the best podcast you've ever been on?
Oh, well, of course, it's your one because it's the only one.
Is the right answer.
Yay!
So before we wrap up then, Rob, any upcoming projects? What have you got lined up?
Just what I was telling you about before. Look forward to Reminisce next week. I've got Face Event. Yeah, that's it really.
Yeah. Any mentions or shout outs you want to do?
Just looking forward to seeing everybody at Reminisce. Like Reminisce is like, you know, we talked about the community in 3-beat and everybody get together. That's what Reminisce is like. Yeah. It's that once a year where you put every DJ together. We've all got backstage passes and it's like, you're all right. Oh my God, high five. And it's just like, it's good. So I'm looking forward to that.
This is episode 11 of the podcast and you're the 6th guest who's going to be at Reminisce next week. Yourself, Mark Simon, Les Calvert, JFMC, Paul H and Rob Kane. Yeah. So good luck to you all and thanks for doing the show, Rob, and thank you very much everyone for listening.
Can I just help?
The Couture 303 podcast with DJ Viper.